Thanks for tuning into the RC Retro channel. In this episode, we're going to look at a Tamiya Astute. I'm going to strip this down, clean it, and rebuild it. The Astute was Tamiya's first real attempt at a legitimate race car. It was designed to compete against cars like the RC-10. However, many people online will say that this car was over-engineered and that it had many design flaws. And that's something that I'm going to talk about a little bit later on in the video. So underneath you can see that this is dirty and grimy and it's going to need a lot of work. It's not very pretty, but I'm going to make you look pretty. So I put together a little time-lapse video showing you how I restored this. As I stated earlier, the Astute had some design flaws. And in the world of RC, when you think design flaws, you'd think it was lacking or missing something. But in the case of the Astute, it had too much, and for that reason, many people thought it was over-engineered. First, and the most obvious, is the fact that the Astute was overweight compared to other cars in its class. And this is because throughout the car, there was over 50 steel bushings that were used at all the pivot points in the suspension. For example, right here in the rear hub, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's just in the hub alone. The hub in itself was another issue, but we'll get to that later on. Another area that is extremely fragile is the front end, and the entire front end of the Astute rests solely on the front bulkhead, which is attached to the carbon chassis with these 4 screws right here. The problem is that when the car goes airborne from a jump and comes down, all the pressure is put right on the front bulkhead, which is already supporting a tremendous amount of weight. And what will end up happening is over time, it'll crack right here. At the rear of the car, you'll probably end up breaking an arm mount at some point, and these are located right here. The arm mounts were poorly designed and weak, and as a matter of fact, when I picked this car up, both of mine were cracked. Just wanted to take a moment and show you. This one basically came apart, disintegrated as I was taking the screw out, and this one has a slight crack right over here. And this is partly because of a thin design and because press nuts were used, and I'll talk a little bit more about press nuts in a moment. However, I was lucky enough to find someone who had a new set. There's actually a few websites out there and online forums that talk about resolving this issue by replacing the rear arm mounts with the ones from a Tamiya Madcap. As I stated before, press nuts in themselves are an issue. I have 2 right here, one on the flat side you could see, and the one to the left is the teeth side. And as you thread the screw through the flat side, the other side with the teeth sinks into the plastic. And this creates a tremendous amount of pressure on the plastic, which then in turn creates stress cracks, and in some cases you can't even see it. Here's a perfect example, and that's something I did right there as I over tightened, and it just snapped the corner of the bulkhead right there. Another area that was way over engineered were the rear hubs and knuckles. The knuckles were reinforced with a small carbon fiber plate, but it would end up cracking somewhere else because of the poor design. Right here is a hub and a knuckle, and the hub fits into the knuckle. These are the ones that I received with my car, and there's supposed to be a piece here and a piece down here where 2 screws go in to hold them together. Unfortunately, both pieces were cracked off of this. I'm currently on the hunt for another knuckle, so if you happen to have one, leave a comment below and I'd appreciate any help. So at this point I hit a little stalemate and I'm down a knuckle. So as soon as I can locate one, I'll finish the second half of my Astute restoration and post a follow-up video showing the completed product. Until then, please subscribe to the RC Retro channel, and as always, thank you for your support.